Hello YouTube, my name is Isabella and welcome back to my channel Stubbornly Bookish. Now I completed 3 books in the month of March. Not entirely thrilled with that, frankly actually not thrilled at all, because I'm also in the middle of about 5 other books and I just really had issues completing things this month. I'm going to talk about them quickly, so hopefully I don't have you for too long, and I'm really hoping May is going to be a better month. So the first book I read was actually a reread, and it was The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. Now I first read this in 2016 and my mind was blown. I thought it was one of the best stories I had ever read, thought it was fantastically crafted, but I never continued on with the series. Now a few years later, I've been wanting to continue the series, but I felt as if I didn't know enough about or remember enough about this one, so I decided I was actually going to reread it. I put the audiobook on hold, waited a few months, and when it came time to read it, I really didn't feel like it, so I forced myself to listen to it with some pretty mixed results. I actually really like my Goodreads review that I did, so I'll leave that linked below, but if you didn't already know, The Final Empire is the first book in the Mistborn series, and it basically takes place in a world in which there's been this evil ruler for over 1,000 years. He's keeps 99% of the population enslaved, but there's also a few people who can wield this specific sort of magic, which is kind of difficult to explain, but all revolves around metals. Pretty interesting magic system, and that's still something that I remain with today. Brandon Sanderson most definitely has a talent for magic systems, and actually writing action is one of the biggest selling points I can give with this novel. My biggest qualm with this book, and something that I guess never realized my first time reading this, was its writing. I think that his writing can be a little dry at times, and when he's again talking about the world, building the world, it's not very stylistic and very matter of fact, which when you've got a thick book and a lot of world building and explaining the magic system, sometimes it can get super dry, and when you're listening to the audiobook, someone can maybe tend to zone out. I did still enjoy it. Once I got maybe 60% through, I started loving it again. His plot and action and his twists are like no other. It was an okay reread, a little bit actually disappointing, which is a bummer. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and sadly it's not one of my favorites anymore. This next book is what either put me in a reading slump or really helped continue my reading slump, and sadly it was A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle. I never read this as a child, and frankly I think I would have loved it as a kid. This is a pretty famous children's book. It follows a young girl who's forced to kind of travel through time to go save her father. You probably already know that the movie recently came out, and I was looking forward to the movie, so I decided obviously that I was going to read the book first, and boy did it hurt the reading slump, my god. I did really like our main character Meg. She is insanely relatable as for a child character, and feeling very insecure and not really knowing her value or her worth, and this story is very much so teaching her and helping her learn that she does have worth, which I think every child could hear. The concept with the way that time wrinkles was very interesting, although could be a little confusing at times. It was very much so, this is how it works, and there's no explanation because just this is how it is. And I never particularly loved that in fiction. I wouldn't mind continuing on with this series. At the very end, I was intrigued and hooked, and I wanted to see what was going to happen in the end. I didn't rate this because of the slump, and also because it is a children's book. I don't know if it's super fair for me to rate this one, so I left it unrated. It was okay, but I just shouldn't have read it at the time, and ironically I never ended up going to see the movie. So the last book was by far my favorite this month. I flew through it, which is a feat for me because I clearly wasn't reading this month, and it was Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. If you didn't already know, this is the first book in a companion series about children who have basically gone through a portal or a door and gone to this magical world that they believe is their home, and then are forced out of it. and then they are desperately attempting and wanting to go back to their homes, but nobody believes them. This first book was really great at establishing how the world and the different worlds work. Our main character is asexual, and there's also a trans, Japanese, and I believe Latinx different side characters. I love the way that the worlds worked and how there are different types of world and different mixes. Thought that was super fascinating and interesting. I think my favorite thing about this book was her writing style. She can write fantastically. There were a few lines in this that actually stopped me in my tracks, which doesn't happen very often. There was one thing that I didn't quite love about it, and that was the ending. I just really wasn't a fan of how fast the ending happened, so I did land on kind of a 4.25 or 4.5 stars out of 5 on Goodreads. So those were the 3 books that I had 3 vastly differing opinions on in the month of April. I hope my reading gets better, although I am a little nervous because I have an incredibly busy May, but who knows? I am, again, in the middle of at least 5 books, so maybe I'll actually complete them this month. Anyway, I will see you again very soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.